that should be, yes, we're live. Hopefully, yes, we're live. Without any drop frames. Looking at what is going on, awesome. Never can be too careful with your settings these days. I did realise at the beginning of the stream, I set the bitrate way too high, like I was doing desktop recording, and it was horrendous. So anyway, that's that done. So welcome to today's live stream. Today we will be taking a look at a ultra budget build using the Ryzen 3 2200G. So I have to think then, yeah, that is right. Some Corsair LPX RAM. Going to be using the Arctic Freezer 7X against my better judgment. Also, we'll be taking the B450M DS3H V2 for a test drive also. Recently bought this as part of a bundle with a 3400G, but the 3400G is going in a slightly different direction. So this is going to be housing the 2200G. Also, we'll be using a Asenno 480 gig SSD. No NVMe drive, so no super chats when I'm putting the screws in. That's helpful. Also, we'll be using the trusty Cylon 500 watt PSU and the case. Now, the case is a slightly interesting one. Well, I say interesting. It may be if you're looking at building a budget setup, very much like this. The case itself is the CiT Flash, which some of you may have seen already. I do know that one of you is watching, Outlaw Fet, currently has one himself, and was part of the reason why I actually got it, because it was highly recommended. I've done an unboxing and a kind of brief review on it already this morning, so I figured I'd go straight in, get the build done, and then turn this PC around so we can move on to the next project. So let's take a look at the case. So this is the CiT Flash. Comes pre-installed with a set of four addressable RGB fans. There's a little bit of a quirk with the addressable RGB side of things. It is controlled only by the redefined reset switch on the top panel, so you haven't got a great deal of control over it, which actually for this particular build is perfect, because potentially this is going to be sold on to somebody else, so I don't want them to have the difficulty of working out how the software works, or when the software fails to work, as it often does, for me to get the support call and them say, Mike, how the hell does RGB work on this case? So hopefully there's a single button as the only thing you can change. So yeah, that is looking good. Yeah, case-wise, micro ATX, as you can probably already ascertain. Good word. So give that a quick spin round. It actually has got some unusual fans in here, which you don't have any RPM control over them whatsoever. Literally the whole system is powered by one single SATA, and that controls, or at least powers, the addressable RGB, and also the RPMs are static at what I can only kind of guesstimate is being around about 1000 RPM. It's difficult to tell because these fans are slightly unusual, which I will show you now when I take the front panel off. The front panel actually, tempered glass, side panel again, tempered glass also. Both panels 4mm tempered glass, so actually when the glass is on, it does feel like quite a heavy case. When you take the glass off, it potentially could blow away in the wind, but I'll take the front panel off so you guys can see what it's like. And I've actually broken one of the plastic retainers already on a previous excursion. Stay. So, spin this around so you guys can see. So on the front we've got these fans. They're slightly unusual looking. They're kind of like turbines that you'd see in a jet airplane, that kind of thing. The weird thing about them is normally when you have fans in a PC case, when they're spinning, if you put anything in front of them, the tone changes completely and they get kind of quite loud and a little bit like they're buffeting, which is understandable because you're blocking the airflow. But actually with these, they're a relatively low static air pressure, so they don't move a great deal of air anyway. But if you do put anything in front of them, the tone doesn't change at all, like at all. So having the glass front panel on the front isn't a problem whatsoever. It doesn't change the fan signature, but it does reduce airflow slightly. So that is something to take into consideration when you're looking at a case like this. For those of you who don't realise why I've got a flashing light to the side of me, that is because we have had a super chat from Outlaw Fet. And Kath's fallen asleep. 79 pence from Outlaw Fet. Thank you very much for your super chat. If anyone wants to drop a super chat, feel free to do so. It sets off the RGB and you will get a shout out and a mention. And obviously, if you've got a question regarding what we're doing here today, then we will try and answer your questions as best as possible. This particular case doesn't have very many reviews on the internet in general, especially on YouTube. There's a few foreign language ones which I kind of guesstimated what they were saying, and overall it isn't a bad case. It's £40, you get 4 fans included, you've got loads of tempered glass, so you can't expect too much. £40 doesn't get you a lot these days. The next kind of best alternative that I could see was one of the Aerocool cases. I forget the name of it now. I think it was the Trinity V3 is the one I was particularly interested in, but that doesn't seem to be available anywhere. The Trinity V2, similar sort of setup, but the fans are fixed RGB. So that is a little bit off-putting for some people, similar sort of price. Otherwise, really, micro ATX wise, you've got the Colink Citadel, and also you've got things like, let me think, what else was the other one? The Q300L. No, I'm only kidding. Don't buy that one, kids. So let's get things started. So I'm going to take the side panels off of this first of all to prevent reflections, all that kind of stuff. And the thumb screws are one of the first things you notice about this case of being a potential issue. So just taking the bottom 2 out, immediately this is wanting to let go. So that means that the glass panel isn't actually held on by anything other than the thread of the screws. So obviously if you are getting one of these, do be extremely careful. As you can see, it just comes off. There's nothing actually holding it. The actual rubber, or the kind of the machined area that it screws into, is not sticking out, protruding in any way. So the glass will quite literally fall off if you don't hold on to it. The glass itself has a very, very, very slight tint to it, as you can possibly make out. So we'll put that to one side for now. The actual front panel has actually got considerably more of a smoke tint to it. Let's put these screws to one side. So how are you guys all doing? Everyone doing okay on this reasonably chilly Tuesday afternoon here in the UK? Hopefully,
nice and sunny but cold.
Sunny but cold, yeah. It's a little bit dreary, but yeah, that's the UK for you. So let's say a quick hello to some of you guys that are in the chat. They've been waiting. So we've got Outlaw Fett. Outlaw Fett actually has this case as well, so I've got to be careful what I say. Don't want to slate it too much. I got Jad 2016, and we've also got Dom's in with us as well. Angry Doge, Ashok, Ugly Bob, as always. Get back to work, Bob. Who else we got? Craig Lilly says, I keep expecting to see a prize fight being played backwards, you know, unboxing. I do get a lot of, people quite often get confused at the word unboxing and what it means. When you try and explain to people, like, what do you do? Oh, I do unboxing. You see the confusion on their face. Like, what's that? I say, well, I take things out of boxes. They're like, yeah, and? Like, no, that's pretty much it. I take stuff out of boxes and show people on the internet. And people watch that. Yeah, strangely they do. Dave Price says, hey all. Taylor as well says, next stream will be like £5 PC. Is getting that way. Clicks out Kev says, I prefer the old music. Where did you nick this tune from? This tune is, oh, I always forget the name. Diamond Ortiz is the author or whatever. And the tune is called Mirror Mirror, I believe, if I recall. So yeah. I'm actually going to reach out to him and see if he can rejig the tune a little bit for me. Thanks, Ugly Bob, for the super chat. So there's a £5 super chat. Appreciate that. And that. Bob says, I work when I feel like it. You're not my real dad. No, I'm certainly not. Outlaw Fett says, if you dare critique the case. Yeah, after you've super chatted as well. Jay Rich says, hi, Mike and Kath. Got Ron Moorings. Hashtag Cringe Life says, hey. Welly Bob says, hi, Bob. Kelvin's with us, says hi. I think that pretty much is everyone. So let's get into this. We've also got James Miscellaneous with us. Did I say that already? James is also with us. So let's get on with it. So quick tour of the case, obviously micro ATX, so only 4 expansion bays on the back. Got the 3 fans up front, like we said, with these crazy blades on them. There is a reason why I've moved these fans actually behind the metal shroud rather than being in front. I felt personally that with them on the front, even though they look nicer, that they were a little bit too close to the glass in the front, although apparently it didn't actually make a great deal of difference. If you guys are more interested in this case and want to find out more, there is going to be a review posted very shortly. Again, I've recorded it this morning. We did actually some tests as well with our fan meter, doing meters per second air testing in various configurations, so side on, side off, fans restricted, fans open, case on, all that kind of stuff. So essentially, to kind of break free of watching the entire video, the fans don't move a great deal of air with all of the panels attached and without a motherboard, without a power supply, so literally kind of just sealed. We were getting roughly, well, depending where we took the measurements from, round about in the center here where your CPU is going to be, we were measuring roughly about 0.5, 0.6 meters per second of airflow, which actually isn't a lot. But if you consider a meter per second of airflow is more than the cubic capacity of this case, then it's not too bad. There isn't a great deal of static pressure on these fans, as we said, so it isn't designed for high TDP builds, for sure. And certainly if you're looking for airflow, this is probably not the case for you. But as a cheap and cheerful, for £40 with the fans thrown in, and actually from the pictures as well, it looks really nice. That is what kind of first drew my eyes to it. They do say that it's suitable for water cooling. Potentially you could put a 240 in the front, maybe even a 360 with a little bit of jiggery pokery in there. The top section, they do say there is actually a mesh on the top, so you could put two fans in there, two 140s, two 120s. 140s just won't physically fit, although there isn't a real offset here, so you are going to be limited by your motherboard and your RAM decisions. So if you're buying this with the thought of water cooling it, it's probably not going to be the best way of doing it. Air cooling, I think, is going to work. Even, in fact, with... trying to work out where the top is, yeah, you probably 120mm fans in the top, I think would be absolutely fine. That would then give a little bit more static pressure inside and help the fans pull in more air on the front. Yeah. Essentially, it's entirely down to you guys how you configure it. But again, 40 quid, it looks quite nice, and when you take a picture of it, there's a very strong chance it's going to sell pretty easily, because, you know, it's like on eBay and stuff like that these days, most people are drawn to the pictures first and the specs second. So, well, obviously price is going to be quite important as well. Looking at the back, we've got a very, very, very tight section around here. So where do I put my ruler? There we go. So looking at the ruler, roughly we've got somewhere in the region of, I don't know, it's a tough one. It's probably only about 7 or 8 mil depth there, which isn't a lot. Luckily, at the front here, there is a recessed channel. Excuse me. So most of the cabling is going to come up through here and go through the pass-throughs. The one that concerns me possibly, if you haven't got a flattish power supply, or flattish cables rather, the supplementary power connection up here, and possibly some of the connectors going through here for your rear I/O, that's for front I/O, USB 2s, that kind of stuff, might be problematic. I would pretty much guarantee when it comes to us finishing this off and putting the back panel on, I'm pretty sure we're going to be laying it on the deck very much like this. Yeah, we're going to be squishing all this stuff right down to try and get it all to fit. So as you can probably see from the overhead camera right now, the RGB cabling off each fan kind of gives you this this bunch of cabling. So there's loads of pass-throughs which are on these kind of Scotch block connectors, which you can just wiggle free, and they basically daisy chain together, sending the RGB signal and the fan signal to each fan. That all terminates into just one single SATA. So for simplicity, not too bad, but there's a lot of cabling here which really is probably surplus to requirements. I did try and cable manage it a little. Luckily, we've got this huge basement area which is pretty much unpopulated, so we should have a reasonable amount of room to actually put stuff. We are going to be putting a single SSD in the bottom chamber here, which if I flip that upside down, you can see there's some mounting points there for the SSD. Hopefully that's coming through on the camera okay. Yeah, you guys can see that fine, excellent. So yeah, we've got those two punch outs there for mechanical drives, or you can put an SSD on the bottom. You probably could get an SSD and then put a hard drive on top of it, but it's probably not a good idea to sandwich the drive. Again, this isn't really designed for populating with an absolute ton of stuff on it. Again, taking this top off, you can have a look at the offset for the fans on the top. It is very close to where the motherboard is at the back. There is a slight gap. The motherboard is going to come kind of, there's the screw mounts there for the top of the motherboard, so there's a little bit of a gap there at the top for putting your cables through. So it shouldn't be too bad at all. Yes, Kath?
Outlaw check says you can't fit a 240 at the top.
No, yeah, the
240 would go fine in the front.
240 would go okay in the front, I think. The 360 should do. Looking at the angles of it, it might be tight. You'd have to take out the I/O panel off the top. So looking at the I/O panel, that would be what would be getting in your way from the 360. You've got enough room actually down there in the gap so you could get it in, but actually kind of getting it to fold forward would be a real struggle with the, you'd have to put the fans on the front, the radiator on the back, and then take out the front I/O panel.
How much does it cost?
Cost at the moment on this one on Amazon.co.uk is, I think it was $39.99 or $39.50. It's actually value for money wise. I don't think you can knock it. Lots of tempered glass, lots of RGB, a reasonably good layout, I think, personally. My biggest concern is getting the power supply in and the cabling in. The rest of it, I don't see any issues with at all. And ultimately, it's going to look very, very nice. Should keep things relatively cool from what Outlaw's been telling us. So if not, we'll have to blame him. There's always someone else to blame. So let's put that to one side for now.
What about the actual build?
What about the actual build? Oh, the whole lot. I'm not too sure. We'll have to go through it. Maybe Kath will total it up at some point. Actually, let's go through the costings now. This is the costs that I have incurred personally. So some of the prices of this are going to be completely way off depending where you live and what you can actually get. So Kath, starting off with the case. So we'll round things up slightly for simplicity's sake. So the case, we'll say £40. That was Amazon Prime. So you may pay slightly more if you're going from somewhere like CCL or CIT. Not CIT, what's the other? Overclockers, all those kinds of things, scan, etc. So £40 for the case. Power supply was 27. The motherboard was 50, we're going to say, because it was bought with a bundle. So you can get these for around 50, 55. So we'll say 50 for argument's sake. The RAM I actually picked up on a particularly good deal. So that was 16 gigs of LPX. I paid some ridiculous price. I think I bought, I think I bought 6 sticks of 8 gig. I think I paid about £70, £75 possibly. So a third of 75 is 25, yeah, £25. Brain's gone. So about 25 quid for the RAM, which is ridiculous. It's like kind of half the price. So realistically, you're going to be paying at least 50 or 60 for that. But for me personally, that's what I paid. So that is kind of what I'm going on. The Freezer 7, I actually got sent this for review purposes, so technically it doesn't cost me anything. But if you were to buy one of these, you're looking realistically about somewhere between 15 and £20, depending where you buy it. So say 20 on that one. The processor, I managed to pick up a 2200G, just as the kind of OEM, no packaging, no cooler, no nothing, for £40. So that was a spectacular bargain at the time. If I don't bend the pins.
How much was that, sorry?
40, sorry. And then we've got the Asenno 480 gig SSD, and that we paid £35 for. So I think that gives us a total of around about 237. So 240 quid for argument's sake. I have picked up some particularly stellar bargains here, I'll be honest with you. The RAM, you could double the price on that easily. The processor, potentially, you could also double the price on that if you're buying brand new. That is if you can get one. That was on an Amazon special deal. Again, if you're thinking, Mike, you picked up all these things really cheap, it's not fair. Well, all I can say is you should be on our Discord. Make sure you're looking at the bargain section. Seam at Night and a load of the other guys, Ugly Bob, etc., are posting really red hot deals all day long. which is basically how I managed to get this as well. Also as well, we got CAF's got the Shop Smart channel, so if you're on Facebook and you want to be kept up to date and you haven't got Discord, then go along and join up the Shop Smart channel. And
It's not really tech, though.
CAF does post deals basically every day. So there's tons of deals. You've got supermarket stuff like Aldi, Lidl. You've also got Amazon sales, Amazon deals. A lot of the Amazon sellers actually now send CAF a list every morning of what's on special offer, and then she puts that out and posts it. So if you're looking for deals for anything, homewares and electricals, ShopSmart's great. If you're looking for more tech stuff, then on our Discord, look in the bargain section. Also, people sell their stuff. I myself put a case on earlier, basically postage price only for a case. So there's tons and tons of deals on there. May not be something that you specifically want right now, but if you keep an eye on it, then you never know. So I think that is pretty much that covered. So yeah, realistically, this kind of costs me in the region of about 250 quid. Realistically, if you were going to build it yourself and you're shopping around a bit, you should be able to pull this off for about 330, I would say. Maybe less, somewhere between 300 and 350 would be sensible pricing. Anything more than that is a little bit on the pricey side. But again, if you're into building PCs and you want help deciding what parts are best for you, our Discord chat, we've got a PC part picker section. So if you've got a build that you've already selected yourself and you've gone through and got some bits, feel free to post it on there, and the mods or experts will take a look and give you some advice, and or maybe even take your build on and try and do one themselves if it's a really good one. So yeah, loads and loads of options there.
No GPU.
The GPU is the Vega 8 in the Ryzen 3 2200G, so built-in graphics. The Vega 8, I'm trying to think where the Vega 8 stacks in the whole product cycle. So the Vega 11 is effectively very similar to the GT 1030 and the RX 550. So the Vega 8 is going to be kind of a little bit less than that. So kind of, it's a really difficult one because there's not really anything lower than the 1030 that gets produced. It's a lot faster than the 730 GT, which is pretty poor. So there isn't really a graphics card which you can buy individually which would be comparable in performance to it, which is why the Vega 8 is such a difficult CPU or GPU or APU, whichever you want to pronounce it, to kind of put something against it. But it's ideal for these times because obviously graphics cards are like hen's teeth, very, very difficult to get hold of. So sticking in a moderate processor like this, it's got graphics built in, you can get up and running, you can play a lot of the AAA games at low resolutions, esports titles, things like your Rocket League, CSGO, World of Warcraft, all that kind of stuff, absolutely fine with this kind of APU setup. But it does give you the opportunity then, especially with your AM4 setup. This board actually does support 5000 series processors, so there's no reason why you could build this and then maybe in 6 months' time or a year's time, when prices hopefully are better, you could stick in the latest and greatest processor and still be invested in your particular build. So yeah, it's all good stuff. Anyway, let's get on with the build.
Mine up. Thing, babe.
Oh yeah, what's that? The processor. We had a funny story. Well, it's not really funny. I bought a 3000G from CEX, which was I think that was 40 quid as well, actually. Yeah, comparatively, I didn't do well there. But the 3000G, I was basically doing some videos, doing some B-roll and stuff, and I had the processor just literally like that on top of a piece of foam to keep it safe. Of course, when I started to pack everything away to get ready for a stream, I pulled the foam across, and the processor just went dying, started bouncing on the floors. I have got some pictures somewhere. I don't think it's on there, but it was yeah, it was not good. There was at least, I would say, getting on for maybe 10% of the pins were bent, and considering how many there is on there, there's a lot of pins on there. Luckily, Kath, with her razor eyes and her tweezers, managed to actually straighten them out, and the 3000G is still functioning and is in my InWin B1 case in the front room and is absolutely fine. So yeah, that worked out okay in the end. I know, I got to find somewhere to put this stuff because Kath's having kittens over there.
And it was a nail file.
So let's start off and we'll get the motherboard ready first of all, then we can put that to one side, and at least then the CPU will be protected somewhat. So the motherboard, as you can see, is the Gigabyte B450M DS3H V2. It's actually not a bad little board. The V2 stands for, if those of you that haven't seen the videos already, the first version, the VRM was a hybrid VRM, so it was part digital, part analog, whereas now on the V2 they've switched the components to make it an entirely digital VRM, which basically means better overclocking, better stability, and all that kind of usual stuff. Yes, Kath?
Tech Power Up. According to Tech Power Up, Vega 8 is approximately GTX 650.
GTX 650. Actually, that's pretty decent. Yeah, I didn't think of that. That's quite an older card. So GTX 650 is, yeah, it will get the job done. What? A 10400F? Yeah, it's decent. Nice CPU. No graphics, but yeah, pretty decent. Oh, there's the 3400G. So we'll get rid of that and try not to drop it. I'm definitely going to ruin something. So let's focus in a little bit on this. There's a bit of a delay on the actual zoom, so there, that'll do. I think that is not too bad at all. Yeah, that works. So let's get the processor on first of all. So as with always AMD builds, if you look at the writing on the socket there, it'll tell you, it'll say socket A. Basically, as long as the writing on the socket matches the same way as the processor, then you're good to go. Also, there is a little golden triangle in the corner, which matches up in the corner, which is normally kind of nominated. So just get your CPU over the top. If it doesn't fall in straight away, you can give it a very, very light wiggle and it will kind of plop into place. We've had a few people recently actually who've tried to put the processor in with the latch down with varying degrees of success. I shouldn't laugh. Outlaw Fets give us 199, says, hey, you like this case or else? I will try to. Adam from the Blind Divide is with us also, and Biohazard X9 says, wow, tiny board. Almost like an ATX, but still enough slots for stuff. Yes. Not Mythic says, how much does it cost with everything? It's around about, well, it cost me around about 250, 240, and realistically at retail you could probably do it for, we're thinking around about somewhere between 300 and 350 pounds, which I think is actually relatively decent. Cosmic Space Muffin says greetings, and Waldo135 says hi. Good to see a lot of you in the chat today. We've got just over 80 concurrent viewers, so thank you all very much. And while you're in here, while I'm blathering on, please feel free to smash the like button. It does help the YouTube algorithm and will potentially allow other people to see the content if they deem it worthy. Right, let's get the cooler on. So the cooler we're going for is the Freezer 7X. Obviously, stock cooler would be absolutely fine, but the way I bought this, it came as a kind of OEM setup, so sadly we don't have that option. I have used this cooler already, as some of you may have already seen from previous videos. But yeah, nice little fan. Good static pressure on the blades, etc. So this is going to do really well. On the bottom, we've got a pretty smallish cold plate. Does cover most of the processor, not a great deal of it, but the majority of it. And you've obviously got two exposed heat pipes also. Yes, Kath?
What's your suggested long-term budget motherboard for Ryzen 5 3400G?
Suggested long-term, I don't know. Where, I would say probably, is it Micro ATX, do you say? I didn't see the question. Oh, sorry, yeah. Joe Burt, what's your suggested long-term budget motherboard for Ryzen 5 3400G? Well, actually, this is probably not a bad shout. The B450M DS3 V2, DS3H V2. It's actually not a bad little board. It lacks features, but certainly is cheap enough. So it depends really what you're looking at spending, what you want to do. If you want all RGB and stuff, then obviously you're gonna have to pay the price.
Joe Rich says, is it me or does the logo look like the Union Jack flag?
It does. I did actually say in the review that the motherboard does look like the Union Jack flag.
I don't know if it's been released yet, has it?
Yeah, I think so.
Don't think it has.
Does that? That must come off of there. This is a particularly nasty cooler to fit, actually. You got the clips, but the actual screw where it goes is kind of hidden by the actual frame. So this could be a lot of fun. Anyway, let's get some thermal paste on. We'll be using the tried and tested method of using MX4, and for all of you haters out there, we'll be using the PAT method, because Arctic MX4 is actually very, very gloopy, as in it's quite runny. So you can put a bit on. You can actually see it does separate a bit. So put some on there. Kath, can I have a piece of tissue, please? Make sure to tighten that back up. And this is where you guys are gonna hate. And I'm gonna can I focus in a bit more on that? Is that gonna be center? Hopefully it's zoomed in. There we go. So what I'm gonna do is, don't do this at home, kids. Basically mix it up a bit and then pat it around. Now people say, oh, you can't do that because you'll get air bubbles in it. Now this stuff is like hammerite paint, whereas it's got a very glossy finish to it. So once you've actually done it, you can almost see it kind of self-leveling. Basically like a self-leveling compound. So now we've got pretty much perfect coverage across there. The compression later is actually going to squeeze out most of that anyway. So it's just to bridge the gap. Chad 2060 says, oh God, what's he doing now? Yeah, it's one of those things. I've always done it that way, and I don't see any point in changing right now. I think we've gone a little bit too far for that now. So I'm going to grab myself a screwdriver, and hopefully one which is actually going to make this easy. What am I looking at, Kath? Mohammed says, sir, you are underrated. Aww. Bless you. That's very kind of you to say so. The check's in the post. Is that PH0? Just finding a screwdriver which actually fits. Yeah, the awkward thing about this particular cooler in a lot of ways is the bracket on the side here is horrendous. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It isn't great. And trying to actually get a screwdriver in, as you can probably see, isn't the easiest of things to do. And that one, yeah, that's loosening off. You don't want to unloosen it more than the actual bit that goes round, because otherwise it's a real pain in the backside. So anyway, moving on. So latch it over the back first of all. Actually, before I do that, I'll just confirm that I have actually tightened these up.
You got rid of all your fingerprints.
Sorry?
You got rid of all your fingerprints.
Yeah, fingerprints are gone, and you can probably see actually it's kind of glossed over. Hopefully you guys can see that. It does go quite, it's quite runny. It doesn't have much of a bridging effect, so you can actually use a little bit more. So I'm going to loop that on the back. I probably will at some point. Not yet. So let's get that down. Oh, and we've slid. There we go. Cripes. Cripes, that is on tight. Nope, that screwdriver just isn't cutting it. If only I had a Mike's Unboxing multi-tool set with me. That would make life so much easier. That's better. So I'm just going to make sure that that is firmly attached. Yeah, that's good.
Oh, Mohammed's been subscribed to us for a year.
Oh, thanks, Mohammed.
Managed to solve lots of his PC problems.
That is very good to hear. Now with this, that is, I think that's on pretty tight. One side looks slightly higher than the other. I don't know if you can see that very well. But it does appear to be pretty darn central actually on the CPU, which is the important bit. And I think we need a couple more screws with confidence on this side.
James likes your sausage fingers.
Thanks, James. Let's see, I'm going to tighten that all the way up. It doesn't say in the manual whether or not you have to do these up completely or not. Like I said, I'm not overly keen on this this CPU cooler. It actually is good in terms of performance for dollar or pound, whichever way you are. And we're going to plug in the connector for the doodah. Plug that in right now, and move the cables out of the way so it doesn't get caught whilst we're putting it together. There we go. That's that done. I do like the shroud on there. It's kind of nice. Nice little touch. So next thing we're going to do is to stick the RAM in. So this is going to be in dual channel. So close up all those, and we want to use slots 2 and slot 4. So if you count from the processor, from the CPU side, count the slots. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this particular board, it's going to be those 2 grey ones, which the light's not particularly shining well on. We are having issues with lighting. We really are. So take your RAM, look at the notch, line up the notch with the motherboard notch, and then you can push with confidence, and you should get 2 defined nice clicks. And we'll do the same on this side. So get it into place, and 1, 2, nice. If you want to, you can give them a little bit of pressure in the middle and a little bit of a wiggle just so they firmly bed into that motherboard DIMM slot. That's the thing what it was called then. So that really is it. We don't need a graphics card. We're not using an NVMe drive. So as far as the motherboard is concerned, we are pretty much done there. So let's zoom back out. And we can put the board to one side. Probably good idea to pack some of this stuff away that we're not using, just so we can clear a bit of working room. Keep any bits that come with them, just so that if you at some point decide to change the cooler, then obviously you can go ahead and do that. And I quite often like to resell stuff. I suppose that's probably because I get through quite a lot, but it's actually always a good idea to keep all your packaging and stuff like that, because you never know who's going to end up with it. So that's that one done. I suppose next really we should prep the case. So let's get rid of some of these screwdrivers. So has anybody managed to get a 3060 in recent times? Just asking. You do seem to be like the proverbial hen's teeth. Biohazard X9 says nope. Waldo's back from restarting his phone because earphones stopped working. Hopefully you're not watching this stream whilst in school. Although if you are, well done. It's the sort of thing I would have definitely have done. Kath should be nodding by now. And yeah, that is the sort of thing he would definitely do. I did actually used to take radio to school and have like a little earpiece going up into my ear so I could listen to the radio. Up into. Ugly Bob says that Asenno box looks like an old style VHS cassette box. It does actually, doesn't it? Yeah.
It does, miniature.
It could be like a multi-set of V, the action picture. This comes with a 3-year warranty as well.
TDK 180.
TDK 180 tape. It could be, couldn't it? It's not far the size of that. Anyway.
This is where I get your 3060 out.
Yeah. No. I have got a 3060 Ti currently. But sadly, it isn't mine. It does have to go back to Zotac. They only sent it to me kindly for review purposes, and it was a very bittersweet thing. I've got to be honest with you. I wasn't overly happy about doing the review, purely because of the fact that I know that a lot of you will want one and can't get one. But yeah, there it is. What it is. Someone said, "What is that PSU? An Aerocool?" Yes, it is. Let's put you back on the other camera. So what we're going to do now is going to put the I/O shield in. Unfortunately, because this is a relatively cheap board, there's no integrated I/O shield, so we do have to manually install one, which is sometimes a bit of a pain, especially if there's a pre-installed fan in the way. So first thing to do is look on the back and see if you've got any kind of fold out bits. Quite often you will do on the Ethernet jack. The amount of times that I've seen people build in a PC and there's been these kind of separation lugs on the back, and they've either gone into the USB ports or gone into the Ethernet jack. And then you've got either, well, basically you've got two options then. Well, three. Three is live with it and never use those ports again. Two is to take the whole thing out and rebuild it after you've bent them out. Or you can use something like some side cutters, like those. And you can actually, if you're very, very careful, you can actually just snip the metal and remove it. I've done that numerous times and I've forgotten to do it. So if it does happen, it isn't the end of the world. But yeah, if you can, do it prior. Now this one doesn't have anything to bend out, so we're in good shape so far. And push that in, that's in nicely. When you put your I/O shield in, if you have a look on the back, you should see, it's going to be really, really difficult for me to show you, or if you didn't see, but around the outside edge of the I/O shield, normally there's little punched out dots. So basically just look along the outside edge and make sure, see that one wasn't all the way out, and just make sure the dots are visible along that outside edge, and that way you'll know that it's been done properly. Actually, that's a pretty decent angle, if you can see it there. I don't know if you can or not. You might be blinded by the shine off of my baldy head. Let's see if I can get the angle on that. But anyway, you might have to zoom your screens in a little bit, but it is there.
I'm going to zoom your screen in.
Like that.
You can't do that on a video.
You can.
No, you can.
Can on Android, I think, possibly, maybe. Maybe I just made it up.
You've made that up.
I've made it up. Let's get
You ain't got a tech channel.
Yeah, if I had a tech channel, I'd be lethal. Right, how many holes do we need for our motherboard? I'm thinking it's going to be 8. So 1, 2, oh no, just an additional 1. So this is a slightly unusual setup actually for the actual pillars themselves. So we've got the standard micro ATX setup, which is the 6, so 3 down this side, 3 down this side, but there is actually an additional one just here. So we're going to put the extra pillar in right now, and we have actually got a special tool for that, which you can buy. Basically, it's kind of like a box wrench, but these are actually really handy. And in our accessories box or bag, we should have an additional one. It's always a good idea as well when you're building a PC, when you're going through all the individual bits, is to actually try the threads in these brass pillars, just to make sure you know which screw it is, because sometimes it can be the fine thread and sometimes it can be the thicker thread. Generally, most boards these days tend to be the finer thread screws. So that is the ones which are like SSDs and that sort of thing. Thanks for dropping in, Biohazard. Another top tip as well, because these bags that hold the bits and pieces in, they often go missing. So what I'm always tempted to do is to use any additional pillars and actually just screw them straight in and leave them in the actual case that they come with. That way then, if you ever need them again, they're going to be there and ready. Now, sadly, in this particular instance, where we need to put our pillar, there is an additional one which goes there, but there isn't an actual hole for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to screw the other 2 brass pillars in the larger ATX format, and we're just going to leave them there. Actually, the bottom one, are they offset? Yeah, they are. You quite often find micro ATX on the bottom ones. There is an offset on the lower pillar, so bear that in mind. Sometimes people move the pillar down here, which you might be able to see there, and put it in the next one up. If you do that, there's a very strong chance that your USBs won't work or your sound won't work, that kind of thing. Same goes for this side. Sometimes there's another pillar a little bit lower down. Mostly that's going to be for ATX, but worth looking out for. So I'm going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those finely threaded screws. And we're going to take a few and blank off the brass pillars. I hate that screwdriver. I've had that screwdriver since I was about 16, which is, well, yeah, a long time. It was originally from a Kamasa set, Oh, it's not even on there anymore. It's rubbed off, has been used so much. But there's a set of Kamasa screwdrivers, and they were really good.
From school?
No, I actually bought them when I got my first job at Motorman. I love saying Motorman, because yeah, it's got a nice ring to it. Do I want to put the motherboard in yet? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, actually, let's put the motherboard in. We can worry about other things later. So line up the board with your rear I/O. And you might have to push it in a little bit. That I/O doesn't seem to, actually, we're a little bit high.
Texway's in.
Jay from Texway. Good afternoon, Jay. Thanks for dropping by. I will be trying out what you did in your video earlier on today. That did appear to be quite a good idea. Jay, for those of you that don't know, is a fellow tuber and did a video today actually how to reduce some of the noise on...
Definitely will be trying that out.
I definitely will be, yeah. How to reduce the noise on your mechanical keyboards. So if you're using a mechanical keyboard and perhaps you're using maybe a slightly noisy one, or you've got a little bit of deck reverb, which is normally a sign of a relatively cheapish case, well, chassis, I suppose you'd call it, for the actual for the keyboard. I'll spit it out in a minute. And yeah, it's a good way of reducing some of that flexing, reducing some of that noise. Good stuff. Trip says, what's happening? Not a clue. And if you've ever watched any of my streams before, you know that that isn't that much of an irregular occurrence. We do.
He's building a PC in the winter and wants to learn how to do it.
Oh, awesome. I would suggest you watch a competent YouTuber. Unfortunately, I don't know of any. Let me get a light in it, because it's really difficult to see inside there. So I'm going to use this. This is actually a really handy thing if you're filming content, or if you're just building a PC, or doing anything actually. I used it in the car the other day. It's basically a little portable lamp, but it's actually got, it's basically magnetic, so you can stick it on places. We'll slide it there. So now I can see where the screw is, bottom corner. If they don't go in first time, just undo the screw, and you'll hear a bit of a click. Actually, that's not gone in. Have I got the right screw?
Screw with confidence.
I am not screwing with confidence there, because that screw appears to be slightly threaded. So let's try another one.
Cosmic Space Muffin.
Cosmic Space Muffin. Ah, there we go, that's better. Did Motorman sell Wins Start Your Bastard Engine additive? Yes, they did.
Or do.
They still do, actually. And the last one I'm going to struggle with because I can barely see, because I'm on a very strange angle. But yeah, did go in. I am screwing with confidence.
I told Waldo already that we've done the review for it, but it won't be out till next week probably, the 3060.
Yes. So there you can see.
Can you tell him?
Yeah, the 3060 review will be out probably, trying to drop your stuff in there. Will probably be out very shortly.
Next week probably.
Probably next week, yeah. I'm hoping next week. We have got about 7 or 8 videos all lined up, ready to go. So it just basically depends on which order we decide to go with.
And we haven't edited that one.
No. Right, so that is the motherboard in.
Derek's just getting some tips as he's going to be building his first PC soon.
Ah, awesome. Building your first PC is always a bit daunting. Basically just watch as many videos as you can and you should be okay. If you look on the back of the case, you can see where the pillars come through. So on this one you can see easily there's brass pillars. So just make sure you haven't got more brass pillars than you've actually got screws, or potentially you could have actually shorted something out. Now obviously for this extra one here, we can see that the motherboard stops here, so that one isn't a problem. Likewise with this one on the back, the motherboard again stops there, so this isn't a problem at all. But all the others have actually got screws in them and are attached, and it's in there nice and firmly. You can, if you want to, install a cooler up to 155mm in this particular case. Whether or not I would say that is a good idea, I don't know. I did want to try the Snowman cooler in here, which I may well do at a later date, because I do have to do some testing on that, further testing. So it would be actually beneficial to try that. But we'll see how things go. But potentially that may well happen. So next up, I'm going to put the SSD in. Now this is going to go in a slightly
Do you want the hammer?
Slightly unusual place because of the way this case is made. So this is actually going to go into the kind of the basement section. So let's put you on the other camera. And we're going to get our cables.
Have you got the replacement for the up here cooler?
I haven't yet. No, the up here cooler. Well, I've kind of got a replacement for it in terms of an alternative, which was the Ventro V5, which is essentially the same thing. So yeah, that one's looking. Actually, that is our SSD there, which I'm considering putting the power supply in first, because we actually need the SATA connector for there, which might be a bit tricky to put in after. So I think we might actually go with power supply. So that's our RGB cable in there, which we can leave to one side for now. And we've got our I/O connections. So let's detangle. If you detangle your cables, it does make life a little bit easier. And what you can do for your main I/O, if you want to, you can just do a little bit of braiding.
Like you know to braid.
I can braid. And that saves you having to use any additional cable ties. So kind of just braid them all together, and that keeps them all bunched up nicely. And also, if at some point you become a father, then you'll be able to do your girl's hair, in theory. And what you can do at the end is just put a little cable tie around it, just to stop it coming unbunched. Much like if you put a ponytail or a braid or plait or whatever. Yeah, plait, isn't it? Not a braid, sorry. So just snip that off there. So now that cable is a bit easier to cable manage. Actually, I'm going to tuck it underneath the other RGB one for no other reason really than just to keep it a bit more tidy. So we can either take that in through the side, or we can take it through underneath. I think I'm going to take it underneath. I think that makes a lot more sense. And also we've got our USB 3.0 header, which on this board from memory is at the very bottom there as well. So we'll pass that one through also. And I'm pretty sure all the others actually will reach quite easily. So we've got our USB 2.0 and our HD audio. So actually they can go underneath that as well. Cable management can be a little bit of a palaver, but sometimes it's worth just looking at your cable routing. With this one, we are going to be a little bit stuck for room. So I'm trying to kind of work out the best solutions for all the cables. But luckily, this actually comes with pretty decent long cables. So if anything, we're probably going to be struggling to actually hide some of these. So there's our USB 2 and USB 3, and then our HD audio is going to go along there. So what we could do now is quickly flip all this over, and then we can connect up the front panel connectors. It should be pretty straightforward to do, although for me personally on this angle it is pretty horrendous, so I might have to stand up and I might block the camera view with my massive head. Right, where's my thing? Whose anniversary?
My mum's.
That was it. Happy anniversary. So HD audio down at the bottom corner, and which one of these pins is blanked out? That's not a particularly good connector actually, but it'll do. It'll get the job done. So down in the bottom there. Why does that not want to go on there? Oh, wrong way round. So there's the HD audio connector.
Hayden asked what motherboard and CPU was it?
Motherboard and CPU are, the motherboard's the Gigabyte B450M DS3H, and the processor is the, do you remember what it is, Kath? Can you remember?
400G.
No. Close. It's the 2200G.
Oh yeah. Put the links in.
Kath did put the links into the video, so she has every reason why she should know.
But I'm gonna
There's no excuse. It is International Women's Month. Month.
Day, wasn't it?
It was the day yesterday, but actually the whole month is basically Women's Month because you've got Mother's Day as well.
That's how I cook your tea every night.
No, that's the other way round. It should be me cooking your tea every night because of it being International Women's Month. No, Mother's Day is coming up. It's Mothering Sunday this Sunday coming. So for all of you that haven't bought anything yet, join the club. Oh, come on. Right, I'm going to connect that one up at the bottom. So there is the... Times like this, I would really, really love to have a small camera which can stream, that could get in there and do that. So excuse me a second while I sort my life out here.
2200G on Amazon is the same price as the R5 2200.
I don't doubt it, yeah. They can get quite expensive. So I'm going to do the bottom I/O panel. I'm not going to actually show you me doing it because it's actually quite difficult to get to. But it's pretty much the same on every motherboard. So in the bottom left hand corner, starting off, you've got your HD audio, bottom corner. Sorry, your hard drive LED. Don't listen to me, don't know what I'm talking about. And yeah, front I/O panels. You'd think by now that most manufacturers would take the same kind of stance as Asus have, where they give you like a little I/O connector, so you just connect up all your I/O nicely, and then after just plug in one unit. It makes life so much easier. Or basically have it molded like a USB plug, because essentially that is what it is. Actually, that's a good idea. I might just custom make some. Mike's Unboxing front panel I/O connectors. Available from all cheapskate retailers. So there we go, there is our I/O connected. I'll quickly flip that over so you guys can see, hopefully. So yeah, I/O's connected at the bottom. Nice and easy. One thing about the USB cables, USB 3.0, they always seem to be a little bit too chunky. Big cables. Now hopefully the power supply will actually go in with those cables in place. They should do. I'm pretty sure they will. I should ask Outlaw, see what the deal is. So anyway.
You did say something about don't use the Cylon screws.
Don't use the quick release screws. So power supply wise, we're going with the Aerocool Cylon 500 watt. Which was another reason why I actually was considering the Cylon Trinity case. It does look pretty nice. I'm just going to have a quick slurp of tea. Excuse me a second, ladies and gents.
Dribbling.
Oh, I'm spilling with confidence. Oh, don't make me laugh when I'm drinking. So, unfortunately, this isn't a modular power supply. Actually, is there screws? Yes, there are screws in there. So we're going to put the power supply in. Hopefully this is going to fit. Yes. Not too bad. A little bit tight. So it would have been, actually, there is a reasonable amount of room, as you can see there. So even with the power supply in, hopefully, you can just about see that. There is a big gap there, so you could actually pass the cables through after it's been done. But as per usual, I choose to do things the slightly more difficult way. Story of my life, isn't it, Kath?
Yeah.
So let's line up the power supply on the back there, get a couple of screws in. Don't screw all of them up straight away. Get a couple in to start with. And then you can tighten them all up after, otherwise you've got more of a tendency to strip the screws if the case hasn't been made particularly well, like this particular one. And there we go, yeah, that's catching, good stuff. Sorry, you guys can't really see what I'm doing here, can you? It's probably for the best. Earl Grey, thanks, said somebody. Earl Grey. Why would you have Earl Grey? Earl Grey basically tastes like the cup's been washed up with lemon fairy liquid.
Lemon or lavender?
I don't know. What is in Earl Grey that makes it have that distinct taste? Is it just basically fairy liquid? I think it probably is. So that is the power supply installed. Now this is where things are going to get slightly interesting. Although obviously they don't, because this is Mike's Unboxing. We don't do things that are interesting. So, Bergamot. Never heard of him. So I'm hoping this cable is actually going to be long enough to go through there. So this is our CPU 4+4 pin power connector. So let's try and get that as flat as physically possible. That's going to bend around like that. So that's absolutely fine. Actually, that passed through there nice and easily. We could probably even cable manage it up a little bit. Now these Aerocool power supplies are not particularly well known for being generous on cable lengths, so I'm actually pleasantly surprised that fitted. Although I don't think my hands are going to fit. Although saying that, no, there does seem to be actually relatively decent amount of room. Not that I can see a damn thing. You'd think with like 300 watts of studio lights, I would be able to see things. Right. Which way? Where's my little light? Come on, Joby.
My precarious life.
Oh. And that's why I didn't go on, because it's running the other way. My precarious lives. Sorry, what was it, Kath? Right, so that's got to go the other way. Try not to get too many twists in this.
She said, bought a CUK Stratos for $300. AMD Ryzen 3 3200G 250GB NVMe. Plus $10 for a window key. Did I get ripped off?
So you bought a CUK Stratos for $300 with the Ryzen 3 2200G, 250GB NVMe, 16GB DDR plus 10 quid for... No, $300. I think that's pretty decent. Is that new? If that's new, that's actually a really good price. Done well. Sorry, blinding Kath with the lights here.
Used.
So, used. Well, I don't know, it depends how used it is. That's probably not very helpful, but if it's in good condition, then really the fact it's used doesn't really make a great deal of difference. I wouldn't say you've been ripped off. At the moment, pricing-wise is...
very good shape, just dusty.
Yeah, that's fine. I think you could have probably spent considerably more. So
How long would you say it takes to build a PC as a beginner?
As
this video
yeah, a PC can take as long as it takes, because quite often you'll find there's little quirks that you have to deal with.
Just enjoy it.
Just take your time. There's not a rush. I never rush when I'm doing a build, even when I'm trying to do a live stream. Ultimately, I'm trying to do a good job. There's no point just doing like a speed build. You see these, some channels used to do that years ago. They used to do like speed builds, who can build the PC the fastest. It's like, well, what is the point? Just enjoy it. Unless you've got an absolute boatload of money, in which case you can build PCs every day of the week, then it's one of those things that you don't do that often. So my advice would be to savor it. Savor every single moment. Just enjoy it for what it is. If you like building PCs, don't rush it. Just, yeah, take your time, chill. If you can, get some friends round, make a thing of it. I certainly would. If it wasn't for lockdowns and other stuff like that.
Ugly Bob says about half the time you take.
Yeah.
Half the length of this video.
Half the length of this stream would be what it should take. Realistically, yeah, you could do it a lot quicker. If I wasn't showing you various angles and faffing around and kind of missing concentration slightly, then yeah, you could do this probably, this particular setup, I don't know, maybe half an hour, realistically. I think would be a reasonable amount of time. What have I been doing, an hour already at least? probably more. But ultimately, that's basically what it comes down to, is just enjoy it. Don't rush it. For the Lols is with us, says hello. Paul Bakewell's in, says good evening. How you doing, Paul? And my Vicarious Life, what was the total for this build? It's difficult to say because obviously some of it I've got for review purposes, some of it I've bought second hand, and I've picked up particularly good deals, so it's kind of unfair, but realistically it cost me about $250, give or take. If I was to buy it at retail without being a little bit lucky, then I think you would probably be looking in the region of about £300 to £350. I think would be a fair kind of approximation. A little bit concerned about that. That is going to be tight. Very, very tight. Tight like a tiger. Let's move those around. Yeah, I'm a bit concerned about that. That is quite close. That could actually pinch on that cable. Come on. It'll all be alright on the night, said Edward Norden. God rest him. So let's get the, might run the power supply up underneath those other I/O cables, just to give us a bit of flexibility down there. And where's the cable? So if we take that up high, that will actually take up some of the flex as well in the actual power supply connection. Don't worry about it being messy for now, because, well, you can tuck all this stuff away later, like that guy did in Silence of the Lambs. Just tuck it away. Tuck it away and pretend it was never there. So there, we could probably come through underneath. Want to go through that other hole? Yeah, we could have probably taken it through a little bit tighter there, but I'm gonna give it a little bit of wiggle room so we don't damage anything. And that essentially is that. So we've got our power connectors for the motherboard power, which is there. We've got our supplementary CPU connector. We don't need an additional one for the GPU or anything, so we can just leave that tucked in underneath. So as far as power is concerned, we're pretty much done. I don't like this. I really don't like that. But it will be covered up a little bit, so it's not going to be the end of the world. So next we want to put the SSD in, because that is going to be slightly tricky. Yes, Kath?
Will an Arctic Freezer 2 360 fit in the front of a GameMax F15?
Will which one? The 360?
Yeah.
Possibly. I think probably. I've not tried it myself, so I wouldn't say 100% yes, but I think there's a very strong possibility that it would. GameX F15, that's yours, isn't it?
That's mine.
I can probably find out, but I haven't done it as of yet. So I'm going to bunch some of these cables up to give us a little bit more working room. And so
says they've just built their first PC and all the lights and fans turn on, but don't have a signal on monitor. Any idea what that is?
Could be anything. Sometimes it could be where something's not plugged in correctly somewhere. Depends on the motherboard and processor.
Discord.
Yeah, Discord. Our Discord chat channel is your best bet. Ideally, if you can, post a picture of the setup so we can get an idea of what is actually going on in there. Tuck that one away. So that leaves us with the two SATA-ish cables. So we're only going to need one of those. So which one's got two SATAs? That's got two. That one has got two also. So I can remove one of these.
Bizarre chat.
What is it?
James Miscellaneous. Buffalo Bill is good at cable management. Who knew? Would you build my PC? I'd build my PC. I'd build my PC after.
She puts the PC in the basket.
Or it gets the hose again.
Oh dear. For those of you who do not know what the hell is going on in the chat or what I'm saying, there's no surprises there. But yes, Buffalo Bill was a character in Silence of the Lambs. If you're of age, you should definitely watch it. It is somewhat of a classic film. And there's a particularly good soundtrack actually. One of the tunes, I think it's called Wild Horses, is just great. Typically,
he's putting his lipstick on.
It's typically American, in a good way. I should be careful what I say there. So let's run these down. Those will probably all tuck in there quite nicely actually once this is done. It's actually not looking too bad, I've got to be honest with you. I thought the cable management was going to be an absolute arse on this, but it's not too bad at all. Put a screwdriver there to keep those out of the way. So next we've got to put our Asenno drive in here. So I'm going to plug in the first of the SATA connectors into the doodah, as they say, in all those technical jargon things. Actually, that is going to be a bit problematic. Why does that not fit? Damn it.
Gaming Citizen says, I've recently got a new gaming PC and it upgraded the RAM after the build was complete. For some reason the PC beeped 3 times before starting up, normally with VGA LED light on. Any tips?
You may have accidentally disconnected your graphics card. It is very possible you can do that. So when you put in RAM, you're putting pressure on the motherboard, so it could be just your graphics card needs reseating if you're getting a VGA light error. Possibly that is it. Maybe reseating your graphics card could sort your problem. Alternatively, I would say remove the RAM stick and see if it boots. If you take the other RAM stick out and it boots up, then that again, it might be just a faulty RAM stick, which does happen.
Menu's gone to sleep, but you can't see it.
Thanks, Babs. So I don't really like mounting SSDs in this particular position, but this case doesn't really afford a lot of options in that regard. What the hell?
Can't actually see
That does screw. Ridiculous. At the moment, for some reason, I don't understand why, we've got 94 likes and we've got 120 concurrent viewers, so that is actually pretty amazing. So if you haven't already, please do smash the like button.
Naomi asks, do you also sell your gaming PCs?
Yes, gaming PCs, I don't really like to, but what I generally tend to do is I list them on a local PC gaming group in Bristol here, where we live. And also I list them in a Discord. Often with PCs, selling them is the postage which kills it here in the UK. Sending a PC insured over a certain weight limit normally is quite an expensive task for a normal individual.
I'm trusting.
It's kind of, yeah, and trusting the couriers not to play football with a damn thing. So I would be, I'm hesitant to send them out, but if it's a local person, I'm quite happy to kind of have it collected or for them to come and see it or whatever. Generally, if it wasn't for COVID times, normally when I'd sell a PC, I would insist on the person coming to collect it, and also for me to have the PC set up fully so they can actually see it working, so that when they actually hand over the cash or PayPal or whatever, that they completely understand what it is they've actually bought, that it all works and all that kind of usual stuff. Just so that if there's any potential issues after the fact, that you say, well, you did actually come in, you saw it working, I did go through what it was. So basically it's just like it's a level of kind of protection against you as a seller. Because quite often people will buy something, look at it, and get all caught up in the moment. Oh yeah, it looks lovely, it's just what I wanted. Then they get home and they find something else, or they realise they can't do something, and then they're like, it doesn't work, I want to bring it back. Because in the UK, that is basically how it works. If something doesn't work, you're entitled pretty much to a refund of some sort if you sell it through places like eBay or those kind of places. If you do it as a private sale, then the seller is slightly more protected, but obviously you've still got the issue of the person who's bought it knowing where you live, because you've gone around to their house to collect it. So if they do get pissed off enough, potentially they could throw bricks through your windows. which gratefully doesn't happen a great deal.
Santa's asked how much for the whole PC.
The whole PC is approximately worth about 250. Whether or not I will sell it for that, I probably, if someone says I'll have it off you £250, I'd quite happily just say fine, okay, done, job done, and be done with it. Just so I can move on to basically another project. Now what we want to do is, with this cabling along this side, because when you put the side panel on, it kind of clamps into this side bit. You don't want to pinch any wires. So ideally, you want to try and get those wires away from that, that side area, if at all possible. So I'm going to cable tie down some of this, just to keep that in check, and also keep it a little bit flatter. I've got to be honest with you, actually I was expecting this case to be not particularly nice to build in, but actually taking your time, going about it in a logical, methodical manner, as as someone else probably will. Yeah, it's actually all right. Now, when it comes to installing Windows and all that kind of stuff, we might not be able to do that because of it normally absolutely hammers the bandwidth on our internet, so we can't stream and install Windows at the same time because it tries to do the updates, and obviously for downloading drivers, etc., it can be a little bit problematic. But potentially what I might do on this particular one is once we've got it all up and running, actually do like a revisit video and go through some of the specs and also some of the sort of pros and cons. This is definitely not a pro at the moment, trying to get these cable ties through. No fault of the case, more to do with my cable ties being not very good.
What's the difference between the KZ08 and the KZ08B?
I don't know actually. Not entirely sure. I would say, is one of them black and one of them's white?
Yeah, ours is white, isn't it? 08.
So we've still got to put this SATA cable up through. So let's take a quick look at that before we get too carried away with the rest of the cable management. And where can we route that through, which would be nice and simple. Actually, we can take it through underneath, that'll be pretty good. And that'll actually keep the USB in place, hopefully. Don't want to put too much of a bend in it. Putting a bend into a SATA cable is never a good idea, so if you can avoid it, then do. So as you can see there is a very slight bend, not hugely. My vicarious life says RGB lights. I used to think RGB was exclamation mark stuff until I got one. Now I think it's the bee's knees and the cat's meow. I agree. I always hated RGB with a passion. I always thought it was just overrated and all that kind of stuff. But once you've actually got it and you're used to it, it's very difficult to let it go. It really is.
Emporium's asked, are those power supplies reliable?
The Cylon power supplies, yeah, generally the manufacturer who makes them for, or the ODM you should say really, who makes them for Aerocool and many other suppliers. I think the likes of Be Quiet and EVGA, etc. They all generally tend to come from a manufacturer called either Channelwell Technologies or CWT, they're otherwise known as, which is basically the same thing. They make a lot of power supplies for a lot of people, and generally they just rebadge them and have certain different levels of components inside them. But in general, they're not bad at all. I've had some absolute crap power supplies in my lifetime. Fortunately, I've never actually had one which has gone properly bang. They've generally all either just been... Actually, yeah, I don't think I've actually ever had one go bang and basically destroy itself. Generally, they've always been pretty okay. So I wouldn't recommend going out and buying a cheapo power supply, but in this particular instance, the Aerocool Cylons are pretty decent. Obviously, if you're building in one, you short circuit something, yeah, it's not going to be happy times for anybody. But if you're sensible and you do builds, like I've built PCs with these power supplies now for probably getting on for over a year or so, if not more. And I've used quite a few of them, and not one of them has had an issue, apart from one which had a broken cable, which isn't a power issue as such, it's more of a production issue. So
Cosmic's on.
Thanks, Cosmic, see you later.
And what resolution FPS can this PC get?
That is a very open question. That is like saying, how fast is the wind? It depends which direction you're facing.
Yeah, that's what James said.
Yeah, it is, that's an extremely difficult thing. I do get asked that a lot, but it's going to depend on the game, the resolution, and the graphical quality settings. And these days, with all the other enhancements, I'm pretty pleased with that. That's a relatively tidy build.
Caden asked, would you recommend that case you're building in?
I think I would actually. For 40 quid, like that is some tidy ass wiring now. I've done pretty well.
Give yourself a pat on the back.
There we go, pat on the back from me. So in theory, I can put the back panel back on. And I don't even think I needed to lie it down to do it, but I will do anyway, because those are a little bit raised. And that is a little bit...
Tidy. Who said that?
That is Ugly Bob.
Yeah.
So we've cleared a ridge along here, so we don't sandwich any cables. There is clips that go in there. So in theory, oh, look at that. That's a thing of beauty.
James has got to get on with some stuff, but he'll leave it running.
All right, cheers, James. So let's put the back panel screws in. That's nice. It's not actually a little bit of flex there, so it's not rammy jammy right up against it. And looking inside, let's take it off so you can see a bit better. That isn't bad. I'm pretty happy with that. If you wanted to put a graphics card in after the fact, which some of you probably will, so the fans are mounted on the inside rather than the usual outside. So if we take a measurement, realistically from probably, where are we there? So hopefully you guys can see that. So basically up to, I would say probably 300 mil, maybe 310 at a push. Roughly 12.25 inches, that'll be right slam bang right up against the fans. But pretty much most graphics cards, I would say these days are about 250, 260 mil, which is going to take you to about there, about 10 inches or so. So yeah, it'll take 10 inches, give or take. So let's fire it up and see if it actually posts. You never know, it might do.
12.5 inches on the slack.
Dual boot Linux and Windows, not a hope in hell. No, we don't do Linux. I probably should do, really, just to broaden my horizons somewhat. But I'm not a fan. I've tried it a few times. I just don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy it as an operating system. I am predominantly Windows based for most of my applications, things like Adobe Premiere, which I guess you probably could run in some sort of emulation layer, but why emulate it when you can use it straight off? Actually, I won't do the peel on the front yet. Let's put the side panel back on. Actually, putting the side panel on is probably tempting fate, isn't it? There's a £5 super chat from Gaming Citizen. Thanks, Mike. How would I reseat the GPU? I had a different brand of Corsair, no beeps. Upgraded to Trident Z Neo RAM and now beeps. It could be you just need to reset the CMOS on your motherboard. So basically take the motherboard battery out when the power's off. It might need the motherboard to kind of retrain itself for your RAM, which is quite often the case, or
Join just Discord.
yeah, we can guide you through it on our Discord chat if you want to. We can send some pictures so we can see. Reseating the GPU is basically easy as just taking the GPU out, and putting it back in. That is literally all you're doing in that particular instance. So it's a relatively straightforward thing to do. Just undo the screws, disconnect it, pull it out of the slot, push it back in and let it click back in. That may be the case. I would say realistically, if you change RAM and then it stopped working, it's a pretty strong likelihood that either the RAM isn't compatible or the motherboard just needs retraining for the RAM that you're putting in there. It's always a little bit tricky. I get it quite often. Normally what I tend to do whenever I get a motherboard, a new processor or stick of RAM, one of the first things I do is to just basically reset the entire CMOS back to the default. So that way when you fire it up for the first time, the motherboard knows that it has to retrain itself and detect the XMP of the RAM and all that kind of stuff. So that is, I would suggest trying those things. So take the graphics card out, put it back in. Maybe try the RAM in different slots. Make sure you're using slots 2 and 4 if it's dual channel. If you can, just try one slot on its own in slot 2 to begin with and see if that works. If then you put another one in slot 4 and it doesn't work, then swap the RAM sticks over. So stick number 2 into slot 2, taking out stick 1 from slot 2. I think, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So yeah, go ahead and do those things. It's just basically fault finding, going through it methodically and seeing basically what works.
Jake Hume says, should the magnetic protector on the top be avoided when using a roof-mounted AIO?
Yeah, if you're using a roof-mounted radiator in any setup, you do have these magnetic filters. Now they are a filter, and a filter is designed to filter in one direction. So if you've got your air in the top as an intake, then definitely use this, put it on top, and that will filter the dust and air coming into the system. If you've got your fans turned so they're in exhaust mode or blowing outward, then take the dust filter off, because all it's going to do is prevent your fans doing what they're meant to do, which is pushing hot air out as quick as possible. And what you can do on a night time, if you turn your PC off and you're concerned about dust or debris, or maybe you've got a cat who likes sleeping on top of your PC, then stick it on at the end of the night. What I quite often do with cases that have these is literally just leave it on the side during the day, and then when I need it at night, it's there available and you know where it is all the time. Don't throw it away because that's pointless. No, do it. You check that one. Yours is like it as well. So yeah, just stick it on the back panel. It won't do any damage to any of the components or the motherboard or anything, because the magnets aren't really that strong. So yeah, I would definitely suggest doing that if you're using a radiator. In this particular case, because of the holes in the top of the mesh there, which they're not particularly well spaced. They're not. They could do with being bigger holes really, or a hexagonal shape. So there's going to be quite a lot of air restriction in that particular setup. So I would probably advise against a radiator in here. Although potentially, no, even with XMP RAM in there, it isn't going to work. So yeah, a radiator in this particular case is out of the question, I think. If you look at the distance there, fans in the top, no problem at all. But a radiator with fans is just not going to happen with the RAM. And you don't really get much smaller than LPX. And then you also have to take into consideration actually the 8-pin supplemental power connector in the top corner. That is going to be sticking out too far. So a radiator in the top is completely wrong in this particular case. So I would suggest CiT, if you're watching, or if any of our viewers contact them for any way, any reason or whatever, then yeah, tell them it's BS. It's not going to do it. It's impossible.
Asked, how are you finding the kids?
Actually, yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised. Because I was hoping that I was going to hate it, because it's easier to get rid of a PC when you hate it. But I actually quite like it. It's been relatively straightforward to build in. I would have possibly have liked slightly better cutouts on the bottom for the I/O, but that is going to be more to do with your particular motherboard than it is the actual case. But yeah, it seems to do what it needs to do. I am tempted to take the fans out and put them on the front again, but that would involve way too much wiring. So I think I should start it up.
Wild Bill said he's surprised to see you use the Arctic Freezer 7X. We all know it's not good.
Well, the thing is, it's only a Ryzen 3 2200G, which even at a push, you're unlikely to get it to kind of 3.9, 3.4 gigahertz as a manual overclock. So it's not going to give off a great deal of heat, and it's certainly a whole lot better than the stock cooler would have ever been it looks nicer as well. And because we're lacking some of that static pressure with these fans, the static pressure in the cooler is going to make sure that the cooler itself is going to do the job it needs to do. So it's going to push that air through the vents and hopefully rely on the case to do the rest. Like I said, I am tempted to put maybe an Arctic P120 fan in this top section here, just to try and pull some of that air through a little bit quicker, but I don't think it's going to be entirely necessary. We will be doing some thermal testing in this as well after everything's been done. He says choking to death. But yeah, I don't think it looks too bad. So I'm going to get an HDMI cable. Cap's going to plug it into the monitor over there, and we'll.
It's the same chassis as the 6.7.
It probably is, yeah. CiT generally tend to reuse a lot of chassis. Manufacturers do it really frequently. It's a very common thing to do. The amount of tooling that it requires to actually make a case is quite expensive. So if you can utilize some of it and rejuvenate a slightly older design, then it does make a great deal of sense to do so. So that can go in there, that can go in there, that might as well go in there. I've lost one of my magnetic rulers in my car. I actually used it to try and remove the heater control panel out of my BMW with, I would say, limited success. So that's that one done. Don't need this anymore. I've got a power cable there, but I've got a power cable there, so that's fine. Yeah, hopefully someone's going to end up with a nice little PC. Right, that's all junk. Try not to smash the glass. So, oh, that's like an Xbox HDMI cable. Right, so let's get this. I'm pretty sure it's going to boot up. Can't see any reason why it wouldn't, although saying that, I did use the 3400G on here with some different RAM. So actually, while I'm at it, I will reset the BIOS. So that's quite easy to do on these boards. Where the front I/O is, there's a little jumper there. So we'll flip the battery out, which you just press down on the tag, and the battery comes out and it falls into the power supply shroud. And then once we've done that, there is a little pair of jumpers there. So we just put the screwdriver across the two terminals just to complete the circuit. And then that should be the CMOS reset. So we can put our battery back in. With the battery, put it in the retaining side first and then push it into place and it should snap in. So that's that done. Kath, can you plug that cable in, please?
Which cable?
HDMI.
Where is it?
On the desk.
Oh, I thought it was coming out or something.
I don't need that. I'm definitely going to knock that processor off there. Let's get the power. I have the power.
It's going to work
Potentially it might. I don't know. We have issues with that monitor displaying out of range signals. So if it doesn't light up and it doesn't go to the BIOS, don't be overly surprised. I certainly won't be. Right, Kath, can you move the screen round so they can see that as well, possibly? Actually, saying that, if I move that out of the way.
Got it?
Yeah. Now you might have to twist the camera around a little. So, oh, where's the other end of the HDMI? This is live TV at its worst, folks. Okay, so we've got some power. And yeah, that's all visible. Awesome. Turn that on, turn that one on. Quick Hail Mary and oh, It's lit up. That's a start. Are we going to get a display? Downside of slightly cheaper motherboards like this is that you don't get any debug LEDs, so just keep on tapping the delete key, so that if the BIOS does actually appear at some point, it will do. This is going to go through doing memory training for a little bit anyway. And there we go, we have a display. Fantastic. So it all worked. Who would have thought it? So we got a message on the screen there saying BIOS has been reset, which we know, so please reconfigure your BIOS, click OK. And there we go, there's a BIOS screen. So currently the processor, it's disappeared. So processor temperature at the moment, 28 degrees, which in a 23, 24 degree room is pretty decent. It will rise a little bit because obviously there is, it is completely cold from not being ever used. Memory is detecting 16 gigs, absolutely fine. So yeah, it's all worked out. Happy days. So at this point now, all we need to do is to install Windows, which I think I have a Windows stick here.
Big Balls Bev's back.
Big Balls Bev in the house. Oh shit, nearly killed the glass. So let's see, let's stick that into a USB 3 port on the back, and I'm quickly going to configure the BIOS. So first thing to do is to go into your extreme memory clocking over profile and choose profile 1, so that's going to give us DDR4 3000 at CL15, which is absolutely fine for APU. You do get a benefit of slightly faster RAM, but it's in the percentile ranges. So being that this RAM was so cheap, it isn't really worth spending maybe an extra kind of £100 or so on slightly faster RAM. It isn't going to give you mind-blowing performance regardless.
You've confused Matthew Day. Is it Saturday?
It is Saturday, yeah. So there's our RAM timing, so yep, CL15, that's absolutely fine. So we're going to System, so we've got a BIOS revision. This is on BIOS revision F60H, which is the latest one. And really, I suppose we should configure the time and date, but we can do that by plugging in the Ethernet at some point, which we haven't got connected. So actually, that's probably a good idea, maybe do that. So what is the date today?
8/9.
So, oh, oops. What was it, sorry? The
9th March.
So 03, 09, 03, 09, 2021. It's a Tuesday. What time are we saying? 17:57. It's close enough. So BIOS level, so first bootable option is the SATA 3 drive, which we want. Boot ups on, logo showing, fast boot disabled, CPU support, yeah, LPX, yes, UFI, yeah, that's fine. Peripherals, trusted platform module, we don't want that enabled, and onboard graphics, we want integrated graphics. RGB Fusion onboard LED doesn't really make much difference because we haven't got anything connected. Above 4G decoded, don't want that. Trusted computing, Super I/O, disable the serial port because we're not using that one. USB config, that's absolutely fine. It's actually registering our data traveler drive, so that's all good. Network stack, yeah, that's fine. NVMe, there's not one installed. So in here we can enable things like the overclocking, etc. So that's all set to auto. Memory's leaving auto, DRAM controller, blah blah blah. SoC, you can change that. So yeah, that's fine. We'll leave that as it is. Chipset auto, SATA mode HCI, yep. NVMe RAID, not needed. SATA blah blah, all that stuff. Yep, that's fine. Power, AC power back always off. Power by keyboard off. I think that's absolutely fine. So save and exit. Happy days. You just about see me peering over the top of the screen there. So this should go into the Windows setup now pretty nicely. Someone's saying that the Vega, the 2200G's Vega 8 graphics performs better than a 650. Yeah, I've got to be honest, I'm not too sure. I've not. It's been a long time since I used a 650.
Cherry Mac.
Chirello Jerry Mark says, I'm going to build my friend a budget PC. I'll copy your specs. Thanks. No problem. Hopefully it's helpful. So install now. Go through the Windows install. Pretty simple stuff. Most people have seen this before. At this point you can put in a Windows key if you want to. If you don't have a Windows key, you can get one from premiumcdkeys.com, which we'll put some links in. You do get actually a discount on that. They are possibly the cheapest legitimate Windows keys I've ever seen. And when I see other YouTubers promoting things like, well, I'm not going to say the names, but there's various companies out there selling Windows keys at a ridiculous markup. So if you want to save yourself basically 50% on those prices, premiumcdkeys.com/Mike's Unboxing gives you an even better discount on it as well, and you'll get your Windows key for probably less than $5. I think it is at the moment, so if you do need one. I don't have one currently, so I'm just going to go ahead and do an install. Don't use KMS activators. And we're going to install Windows 10 Pro. And we're going to agree to the conditions. And we'll do custom install. Yeah, drive's not been allocated, so we got there, so 450 gigabytes approximately. And that is going to be pretty much it. Now we are going to struggle now because this doesn't have Wi-Fi, and I've got the Ethernet plugged into my laptop, which is currently running the stream, so yeah, that's not going to work well. There may actually be drivers built in for most of it from the Windows installation disk. We'll find out. So if people are interested in watching somebody install Windows, then yeah, we'll carry on doing it. We'll get to the end of the install and then we'll call it a day on the stream. But we've still got over 100 of you watching at the moment, so if there's an audience, I should do it.
Big Balls Beth would be the best dad in the world if he gave his son this PC.
You probably would, yeah. Big Balls Bev says, I'd be the best dad in the world if I gave my son this PC. I was considering giving it to my daughter, but she doesn't really use a PC now. She's on her phone all the time. And yeah, actually trying to get into her room isn't the easiest of things to do. So yeah. I'm a little concerned how long this bit is taking. Getting files ready for installation, that should just blip through like that.
Do the pill, Mike.
But I think that the USB stick I'm using isn't actual USB 3. So that could be it. Yeah, it's not even getting warm, which normally they would. Do the pill? Yeah, I suppose I should do the pill. I'm going to put my hand on the side of the PC so I don't get electrocuted. What a noise. There we go. There's the pill, ladies and gentlemen. And now you can see Kath in the reflection.
You better not.
Yeah, you set the camera up.
Oh. Tell Fred I didn't mean to wave. I meant to do the smiley face, but I got stuck in hands.
Oh, yeah. That was a decent peel. I like that. Right, so at this point now we can remove the USB stick because it's basically done, so Windows needs to restart to continue. So that is all we need a USB for, so that can be removed. Just to prevent it trying to actually boot from that. And a good way of actually installing Windows is without, well, there's flip sides. If you install Windows without a Ethernet cable or Wi-Fi connected, it makes it easier because you don't have to use a Microsoft account to sign up. You can just say it's just a regular user. So on the downside, it won't automatically update drivers and service packs in the background during the install. So it can make it quicker, but there are some downsides. So yeah, depending on your use case scenario, sometimes I would say it's better to have Wi-Fi and also Ethernet connected during the install. But each to their own.
Aristo asks, what graphics card does it have?
Graphics card, it doesn't technically have a graphics card. It's got an APU, which is the Ryzen 3 2200G, which has got the AMD Vega 8 graphics built in, which will share up 2 gigabytes of system RAM. So we've got 16 gigs in there, so we've got 14, well, it'll be 13.5 because it uses half a gig for kind of allocation table type stuff. So we've got 13 gigs of RAM for Windows, which is more than enough these days for most applications. 2 gigs of RAM will be kind of shared in buffer for the actual graphics.
What should be good. Between Windows 10 Home and Pro?
Windows 10 Home and Pro, essentially you can normally get Pro cheaper. Windows 10 Home is normally for home users, so it doesn't contain some of the other networking components, such as the ability to join domains and all that kind of stuff. Networking in general is a little bit more difficult. Also things like the BitLocker service, that doesn't run on home as far as I'm aware, and I don't think you can enable disk encryption either. So there's a few kind of more technical aspects of it, but that kind of is the real kind of downside or upside. I think actually my laptop here is running Windows 10 Home, and you don't really notice the difference. Let's have a look. System. Yeah, that's running Windows 10 Home, and I still use it to connect to the network and to send files across and connect to my NAS and all that. Don't really notice the difference. Ooh. Sorry, just looking. There's a IT Pro update. How to hack the New York State COVID vaccine app. Thanks for that. I'm obviously very local.
Has anyone got any questions on that?
Yeah, I think we're done for questions. Is there any questions while we're waiting for this to go through? United Kingdom, yes, it's actually very difficult for me to see this. Let's connect you to a network. No, don't have one.
How do you sell that blue roll?
So offline.
Like a booster seat.
Who's going to use this PC? User. Have I spelled that right? I can't see. UESR.
Is this case good for airflow?
There's a lot of air coming out.
Can't really tell without the side.
Yeah, because the front panel's not on, it's difficult to tell. It's not brilliant, but there's definitely quite a breeze there. This back fan's quite noisy, or is it? Oh no, it's the CPU fan. Don't use online speech, don't want that.
What's a good upgrade from 3200G?
From a 3200G, an upgrade from that would probably be Ryzen 5 3600. Yeah, 3600 probably be a noticeable jump. You'd need a graphics card. If you want an APU, then really probably the 3400G is probably the better upgrade if you can, but it's depending what you pay for it. It's actually a difficult time to upgrade anything at the moment. I don't want Cortana.
Do you understand the Dan?
Do I understand the Dan one?
Don.
Cosmic Space Muffin is back. Don Dassinger Central Phoenix LAN tips and how-tos. Nice. The SLM, the License Key Manager program. Yeah, you think you can do that. There used to be a way you could upgrade Home to Pro quite easily, just from a command line, and I don't think you can go the other way around. I don't think you can downgrade Pro back down to Home. I might be wrong there.
And then Taylor, what's a good graphics card to accompany a Ryzen 5 3600?
A good graphics card to accompany a Ryzen 5 3600, ideally somewhere like the 1660 Super, the RX 5700 XT or 5700. RTX 3060 if you can get one. Well, not a 3060, a 3060 Ti. 3060 doesn't make a great deal of sense at its current pricing.
And then Nick Barnes.
Nick Barnes. Hi Mike and Kath. As eBay can be so risky, would you say B grade clearance better bet? Yeah, sometimes. I always like trolling the Amazon warehouse deals. Quite often you get some really good stuff on there, which
they've got like an overstock shop.
yeah,
Now,
yeah, overstock shop is not bad either. I wonder if that Ethernet cable will go far enough from my other PC. Ooh, there you go. Have some Ethernet.
What is the difference between 1650 and a 1650 Super?
Sorry, what was the difference between what?
A 1650 and a 1650.
The 1650 is not great. The 1650 Super makes a lot more sense. It's got faster GDDR RAM, and I think it's got a wider memory bus, if I remember rightly.
If I remember rightly, memory bus.
Yeah, the 1650 Super is actually a pretty decent card and is a little bit faster than the RX 580. It's not working. Welcome to Microsoft Edge. Screw yourself, hippie. I accept whatever you said. So that is, we're up and running. So, oh no, it's going to, actually it's probably doing a Windows updates already. It doesn't appear to be killing off the Logitech says, is it worth it to buy a 1660 Super i5 10400 desktop if I already have a 1070 laptop? Yeah, 1070 is a decent card. Depends what your 1070 is running laptop-wise, processor with it, and whether it is the proper 1070 or whether it's a laptop 1070, which is generally somewhat underpowered. Right, how are we doing for graphics drivers? Device manager. I can't see. Device manager, there we go. Oh god, yeah, we've got loads of drivers to go. So we need some chipset drivers for sure. Don't think I can really get my laptop much further off the edge of this desk. There we go. Right, so the first thing to do, once you've got your PC on and installed and all that kind of usual jazz, then you want to head on over to amd.com or intel.com or whichever flavor you are going, and go to drivers and support. Actually, this is quite snappy. Drivers and support, I can't see a thing.
PC.
Make it snappy. So we want to go over to chipsets first of all, and then AMD socket AM4, B450, and submit.
Frame dropping apparently.
Sorry. We stuttering mic. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, we're dropping a couple of frames, so I'll just change some settings here, bear with me people. Let's change my KBS. I can probably get the stream down to, let's try 250. No, that's not my mouse for that, is it? Dipstick. Hopefully the resolution quality won't get too bad. So, version number, chipset drivers, that's the one. So yeah, get chipset drivers. Chipset drivers first, always. Don't install anything until you've installed your chipset drivers. They are very, very important, because that is basically what kind of gels everything together. So you've got your SM bus controller, you've got your GPIO controller, you've got the power management drivers as well for the actual processor, the Ryzen power profiles. Wow, that was hard. So definitely do that. Those sorts of things you do need to do. Does that say open file?
Pierre's here.
Hello, Pierre. Mange tout, as they say. Warning, recordings cannot be, yeah, whatever. How's that doing? That seems to be doing okay, I think. Yeah, we're doing all right. So sorry, where was I? Yes, chipset drivers. Chipset drivers, exceptionally important. More important than the latest overclocks or the latest graphics drivers or the latest browser. Do your chipset drivers first. I cannot stress enough how important that actually is. And let's get that installed. So as you may or may not be able to see on the screen there, so this has the AMD Ryzen power plan, also the AMD GPIO driver for the chipset. It also has the SM bus driver, which is basically melds the RAM and all that kind of stuff together, the GPIO driver and the PSP driver, which I don't know what that means, but you need it. So we're going to install those drivers now. Now when you install this, you may find that your USB devices stop performing or are inactive. You may find lights go off, etc. Don't be too concerned. It's basically the motherboard doing its thing. It needs these drivers to work correctly and for Windows to recognize, oh, look, I've got a Ryzen processor and I've got this chipset, so this is how I need to act. A lot of people don't install the chipset drivers and just assume that because in Device Manager there's nothing highlighted with an exclamation mark that it's fine. It isn't. You do have to have your chipset drivers installed. I would always recommend you do that first. Caden. Yes, videos will always be available after stream, and they'll be
about an hour to process.
Yeah, they take a while to process. So if you're not in the live stream, you can kind of rewind during the stream DVR. But once the stream is ended, it then takes about an hour for the YouTube algorithm to process the video, look through it, make sure I haven't said anything I shouldn't have, and then to make it go live once they've done that. So that is installed. So now we want to do a restart before we do anything else. Now, again, extremely important to avoid things like the NVIDIA Aerocool 43 drivers or your Radeon drivers not installing. Restarting after your chipset drivers are installed is of utmost importance. Make sure you do it. I cannot stress enough how much you need to do it.
What's the difference between the CPU chipset and the motherboard chipset? Said Walder.
The motherboard chipset and the CPU chipset are effectively the same thing. They are connected via the kind of hypertransport, or what do they call it these days? The Infinity Bus or Infinity Fabric is what links together elements of the CPU, the APU, and the system itself. So PCI Express works on various lanes. Now, a lot of the lanes go from the CPU to the APU. Some of the lanes go to other areas of the board. A lot of the lanes are actually dedicated to the chipset. So from the processor into the chipset, and then back into things like your USB ports, your graphics card, drives, etc., etc. So making sure that all of those devices have got the drivers they need to communicate with each other in their most efficient way makes your system faster and therefore snappier and more reliable. So
Technology channel asked, are you building a computer? I thought we've just finished.
Just finished building a computer. So now we can get the drivers. Now this is again is important. You don't use just normal Radeon chipset drivers and graphics drivers for the 2200G. There is a specific driver for it. So what you need to go is into the products from the list. You go into processors. Actually, sorry, I'm lying. Processors with graphics. And then you go to your appropriate one. So we're a Ryzen processor. And it's the Ryzen 3 desktop processors with Radeon Vega graphics. And then we go to Ryzen 3 3200G, 2200G, and there's a 2200G Pro in there. They're both the same anyway, basically all three of those are the same. So click on that, click on Submit, and then that will give you your Windows 10 driver. So now we can download that, which hopefully won't kill the stream. Phil Taylor says, hi Mike and Kath, hope all is well. Yeah, not too bad. Technology Channel says, hi, I'm new. Are you building a computer? Yes.
Told you that.
Yes. We're very much at the end of that particular thing. But this stream has been going for how long? Can't even tell.
2 hours.
2 hours. So yeah, there's a lot of information. Some of it is possibly teaching an old dog new tricks, but it's like anything. I don't think you can ever know enough. It's always worth taking other people's advice, looking around, watching videos. We have gone essentially from kind of the beginning. So we've had bare component parts, we've built the system up, we've then gone in, configured the BIOS, and now we're installing Windows. So by the end of this, throughout the entire video, if you watched it at 1.5 speed or 2 times speed, you'd have a pretty good idea of how to build a PC from start to finish.
Right, all down. So do you have to download CPU chipset and motherboard chipset drivers?
Yes. Yes, there are drivers for the processor itself. Because of the fact it's got an APU built in, Windows itself will do a pretty good educated guess of downloading the drivers, if I'm completely honest with you. I would say if you're using something like DDU, the display driver uninstaller, because you've had issues installing graphics, etc., once you've done that and removed it, quite often it's actually a good idea to do Windows Update a few times and let it pick up what it thinks it's missed. That often works out really well. Otherwise, yeah, downloading the chipset drivers, do that first, then do your processor or APU drivers. For some processors, there literally won't be a driver, so you don't have to worry about it. So the chipset one is the one I would say is of paramount importance. Wow, that was difficult.
Matthew Day says next time try the automatic option.
I did try the automatic option once before, but it didn't pick up the APU, it only picked up the chipset. And then I was like, okay, that's good, but not brilliant. But it does, the automatic detection does work for a lot of cases. I must admit, I'd probably need to try it again. I haven't tried it for a long time. So I think that's done now. So open file. So now we're actually going to install the Adrenaline drivers, but these are the specific Adrenaline drivers for the APU, rather than being just a generic one that covers the Radeon graphics cards as a whole. For laptops, if you're doing this on a laptop, get the graphics card driver or the APU driver from the graphics card from the laptop manufacturer, because theirs will often have slight tweaks, certainly for GPUs, because graphics cards or GPUs in laptops generally aren't the same as their desktop counterparts. So that often AMD or whoever, NVIDIA, Intel, will write a specific driver for that particular model due to either restricted or cut off pipelines, less CUDA cores, less pixel shaders, that kind of thing. So yeah, with a laptop, make sure you get the ones from the drivers. Make sure you get the ones from the manufacturer's website.
Caden feels like he's seen you in real life before.
Caden Wilson, I feel like... do you live in Bristol? You may have done.
Or are you mistaken him for Vern Troyer?
Yeah, or have you watched Vern Troyer on the Michael Myers films? Texway says, what's your go-to website for installing common software on a fresh install? I usually use Ninite. That's a pretty good site. I've never actually used it. I've never ever used it. I try and keep the systems as minimal as physically possible, which is possibly not the greatest of ideas, but quite often I'll accumulate a lot of crap as time goes on anyway, so I just do it the slow way. If I'm building a system for somebody, I will normally ask them specifically what apps they want, and then I'll do individual installs on each one, which probably takes a lot longer, but kind of works. I'm trying to work out which component is making more noise. Is it the power supply?
Do you get inspiration from other tech YouTubers?
I guess to some extent I would say yes. I do. One of the first tech tubers I probably watched with any regularity would probably be Linus. long time ago when he kind of started out. And from then it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. There are others which I've watched which are, I wouldn't say influential, but I do watch some purely with the idea of trying not to be like them. Not in a disrespectful way, but purely because a lot of people have got their own kind of style, and I don't want to be emulating anybody because I am myself. And it's harder to emulate someone else than it is to actually be yourself. So it's a lot better just being who you are. And if people like you, great. If they don't, it's not really a lot you can do about it. If you're doing a YouTube channel for the long haul and you're doing it like every single day like we do pretty much, if you're trying to be like somebody else, that is going to become very tiring very quickly, which is why a lot of the popular channels actually do fizzle out pretty quickly. I've seen loads of YouTubers, even in the short time that I've been doing it, where a new channel sprung up, they've got tons and tons of views. YouTube have really pushed them because they are kind of a little bit similar to some of the other top tubers, and they just fizzle out because it's just too much to do, because they're possibly not being themselves or true to themselves, and it's hard work.
Taylor says, used your old driver update video the other day, saved my blue screening PC.
Yes, that's good. That is actually the Snappy driver installer is pretty decent.
Pierre says you look like a random geezer down the pub, so I asked her fill a gram.
Random geezer in HD, almost.
She's Phil.
Oh, that's not so good. Right, I'm gonna put Cinebench on here and see if we can punish this system a little bit. If I could spell Cinebench, that'd be really helpful. Cinebench, get. Use across your, no thanks, just get the bloody files. No. There you go, for any Microsoft accounts there. Whenever it asks you, just say no. I refuse to play your mind games.
Does that air cooler fit on A320?
Oh god, it's buffering now. Sorry guys, that's my fault. Is it dead? $238 US for a new GTX 1650 Super. Deal or no deal? No deal, I think. I've killed it. Have I killed the stream?
Yeah, I think so. Well, that's a bit. It looks
Yeah.
like.
I think the Windows updates have kicked in again, haven't they?
I think you're strobing.
I'm strobing? Oh, I didn't even feel a thing. Right, as soon as it's done that, I'm going to unplug it. Installing Cinebench. There we go. Right. Let's unplug that. Let's launch Cinebench quickly before anyone finds out. Alright. We back to normal yet?
Heavy buffering, another chunky weenie DOS attack.
Oh, chunky weenie. Damn MF. Drop frames. Nope, we're stable again now by the looks of things. Hopefully. It clung on for dear life, you're still here. Yay! Right, let's run Cinebench and upset the processor. Actually, if I'll put the side panel on.
Cosmic Space Muffin's biggest inspiration is Gary Holzman.
See, Kerry Holzman, he is one of those people that I actually love to hate. He really is.
Is it Kerry or Carrie?
Carrie or Kerry, I don't know. I don't care. I call him what I want to call him. Hold on to the case, so I'll get staticked. Hey Dory.
I was going to say, why don't you lie on its side? That looked like a better way when you did it on the back.
Now this is going to go some way to show you how much of an ass-clenching time this is. Especially when I can't see what I'm doing. That kind of works. So because there's absolutely sweet FA to actually hold this in place,
Welly Bob wants a peel.
there will be a pill. Although I'm going to have to do a semi-pill to attach that glass swinging around there does does terrify me a little bit. Is it terrifying you, Kath?
Not as much as when it's on the floor and your feet are near it.
Also, as well, because of the fact there's nothing to actually hold the glass in place, it does kind of mean that you're kind of winging it when it comes to lining up the screws. You have to kind of adjust it.
You had it on flat on the table, and I think that might be the way to put the flat side on. But then
yeah, I can't really connect it. Yeah, not easily. So let's. Oh, damn it! I didn't do the semi-peel there. Damn it, semi! That was a reference from a certain film there, which you may have understood, you may not. Right, let's get Cinebench cranking.
Oh, Welly Bob's waiting for that peel.
Advanced benchmark.
Bench is going to kill him.
Minimum test duration is off. And we'll go for some multi-core action. And earth myself out. I still appear to have lots of static. I was just thinking that I was going to just screw it up and throw it. You stuck to my faces. No, because I've got to stick it back on the case when I sell it. Stay. I think it will.
Would you use that air cooler on an A320MH? Would it actually fit?
On an A320MH?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be fine. Hello, George.
Hello.
Dory's not happy with the Gigabyte or motherboard.
Yeah, I'm not. I've got to be honest, I'm not overly happy with it myself, to be honest with you. James Miscellaneous says colours. Chris O'Hanlon says, are you live now? Yeah, I think so. I thought I was watching something from 3 days ago. You were.
You've got to do it slower.
Slower? I can't do it any slower. If I do it any slower, I'd stop. I really need hardware info or something like that on here to see how hot it's getting. It's probably not a great idea to do this. Actually, saying that, it's not doing Windows updates because I've disconnected from Tinterweb, so it actually should get a relatively positive result. So it's been so long since I've actually benchmarked to 2200G, so I don't even know what to expect. What we got on the scores there, so the lowest we've got there is 3000, so it's going to be well below that. I would say probably like 2500, possibly. Somebody do me a favour and look up Cinebench R23 Ryzen 3 2200G.
Are those fans on that case controlled by DC current or PWM?
Neither. The fans are not controlled. The only control you've got is over the RGB effect, which, press the button there. Hopefully that's changed.
Yeah.
So this is basically the options.
Is Maisie there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, see her. She just went out.
The nice thing about this is actually the fact that you can't press the reset button, because there isn't one. So you can't accidentally press reset. My Vicarious Life says I ran Cinebon the other day and got 3500 or so. Oh, we're buffering again. George! It's all your fault. No, it's frozen. Kath, turn off your internet, for God's sake.
Your internet?
Yeah. Because the internet's dying and the streams are dying. You're killing me. Literally killing me.
George.
Oh no, it is moving. What do we get? I can't even see from here. 3,619. So that's actually not too bad, considering that the Intel Core i7 4650HQ gets 3,800, and it's almost the same as 11th gen Intel i7 1165 G7. I'm pretty pleased with that. 3619. I'll take it. Not bad. I think that's actually quite good. Big Balls Bev's fine for me. Oh, it keeps on showing that it's not doing anything on that screen. But okay. Fine here, mate. Lol. So yeah, the fans connect to the other fans. They all daisy chain, and it ends basically in one SATA connection. So the fans are a static RPM. Fixed it, what I think is probably about 1,000, maybe 1,100. I forgot actually, I got the sides on. I'll take it off now. Is there anything coming out of there at all? Don't think so. Kath, can you get my vape for me, please? We have to do some scientific testing with the vape.
Flat.
It probably is in the kitchen, is it? Next to the microwave. All the healthy things put together.
We haven't used it, have we?
All good streaming. Stream is fine. Okay. Okay. So my Vickers Life got 3578. So yeah, not bad.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
It's on. And that's mine just gone home.
So it is blowing some out. Not a lot. There is a little bit of positive pressure in there.
Did you do your healing voice again?
Oh, that was a bit of a...
Sorry, it's blowing some out.
Don't get much sucked in from the sides.
Is it coming out the top?
Actually, it is getting sucked in.
I think that's just coming off the side.
Oh well. Strawberry. No, cherry. Raspberry Ripple, maybe. I don't know. All of the above.
James.
James, hey Mike, donate that PC to Harry and Meghan. According to their interview, life is really tough and they can use some love. I think that'd be the least I could do. If Prince Harry wants to get into some PC gaming, if he reaches out to us, that's a sign for a telephone for those of you who don't know.
Well, you're at that off X Factor years and years ago.
Yeah. Hazza, Megs, give us a call. We're waiting. Or just drop us a super chat.
I can afford that.
Ugly Bob says 420 blazing. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate all your support. Now, Bob has actually sent us another CPU cooler and also sent us a mouse to review as well, so we'll be taking a look at that very soon. It is going to be soon, Mike's Unboxed In, sponsored by Ugly Bob and his range of face masks. Stream's okay. Okay. So let's, I'm going to brave it a minute and I'm going to try and put on this wee beastie. I actually quite like this PC.
I thought you said you were going to put on.
Oh, I need to change the lights because we're still in red. Can't have red. Oh, that is Team Red. Hey?
I thought you were going to say you were going to put on Lisa Sue's heels.
I will be in Lisa Sue's heels if Bob pays me enough. I didn't. I didn't say that. Have I crashed it now? Oh no, I haven't. I thought it.
To see you walking in heels.
I thought it crashed then.
That glass side would definitely be broken.
So I want hardware monitor. That's a nice easy download. Hardware monitor. I don't want the Pro version because that's going to cost actual money. This is actually feeling like a really snappy little system. Granted, there's absolutely nothing on it really, but it's not bad. I think the conversion from the hybrid VRM to the digital VRM does appear to have made some difference. So let's see what we've run in here. So CPU package temperature at the moment is 30 degrees and dropping, 28, 27. I do need to adjust the fan curves a bit because I think it is doing a little bit too much as far as that's concerned. Oh dear Lord. Right, let's close that. Let's run the Cinebench again. And we'll see what the temperatures do. I'm thinking it should realistically max out in the 60s, if that. What are we getting? All core boost at the moment is around about the 3600, which is kind of what you'd expect. We're at 52 degrees. 53.
Why don't you use HWI and FO?
Good question. I've always used this one. I like it. It's a bit limited, but gets the job done. CPU Z pop-up. No discrete GPU detected. You are poor. Please reevaluate your life. I'm not reading some of those comments. Oh, 55 degrees. So we are heading up a bit. Doesn't appear to be affecting the boost speeds. We're still at 3593, which is okay-ish. 55 is pretty respectable.
Good standards there.
Not really feeling any heat. It actually runs pretty cool. Again, there's no graphics card, so there's not really a lot to get hot.
Is coil whine normal?
Coil whine is an inherent feature of electrical components. Normally, it can be down to literally one of the coils not being kind of in its holder. A lot of the time, they're encapsulated in like a plastic holder. Years ago, they used to be open. I wonder if I've got one. I don't know if you can see it on this old graphics card. No, it's difficult to see on there. On older graphics cards, you'd see the physical coil and you can see the metal windings. And basically, when the electricity goes through it, it oscillates or resonates, and that is the coil whine. Sometimes it can be down to a poor power supply. That is normally where you get coil whine, because you're either getting too much or too little voltage or amperage through the particular device. So that's always worth looking into. Generally, power supplies tend to be the most problematic things. Graphics cards next, but normally you can try it yourself. Just go to Amazon, order a really good power supply, try it. If it removes your coil whine, that's your problem. Power supply. Cheaper power supplies generally will whine. We're at 56 degrees and holding.
So it's nothing to worry about.
No, coil whine's fine, unless it's like ear-piercingly loud, in which case it's not good. It means this imminent failure. But a little bit of whine. It's like if you go past a power station and you've got a little bit of moisture in the air and you can hear it kind of crackling and all that kind of stuff. Welly Bob, thanks for stopping by. Pierre Plays fell asleep at 4 PM and missed the notification. I almost missed it myself.
And me.
Oh, we dropped down to... Oh, we're dropping down now. It does seem... It's down to 54 degrees, but there has been some throttling, which is slightly unusual. So there must be some background tasks going on. I have got the Ethernet cable plugged in, and it probably is doing some Windows updates. So we'll find that out shortly after. We'll see how much the score's been affected. It should be a lot less. Is that finished? Yeah, 3507, so there's definitely some background processes going on there, and the throttling will have picked it up. So 56 degrees was what we maxed out at, which that's not too shabby. Windows update. Oh, no. Not doing Windows update, so I'm not too sure what's happened there. Shouldn't be thermally throttling with just that running and updates in the background. You swine. Okay, anyway, it is almost 7 o'clock now, and this is going to start killing the stream because of the the update, so we'll unplug that very quickly. Are we buffering again? Yeah, lag, sorry about that. Yeah, trying to do Windows updates at the same time is never a good idea. Where are we? Output. Let's crank that up a little bit. There we go, that'll do. I really should sort out a streaming machine. So I think that's going to wrap this one up, guys and girls, obviously. Hopefully you've been somewhat entertained on these dreary Tuesday afternoons. Kath's got around up.
2 seconds, Gaming Citizen has solved it. Was as simple as having the monitor switched on before the PC and the VGA LED light does not come on.
Right. How bizarre. Well done. Well done for fixing your PC problem. Fault finding is always the way forward.
Right, you can go now.
So, sorry, yeah. So thank you all for watching. Hopefully it's been yeah, moderately entertaining on these dreary nights, afternoons in the UK. Hopefully you may have learned something, and potentially you may now decide that you actually quite like the look of the CiT Flash and you're going to get one for yourself. I actually think it looks really nice. The fans, I would say probably you don't have to move them forward if you don't want to. I did just to see if it made a difference. There is a full review on this coming in the coming days. We have filmed that, so we will be adding some extra things like temps and stuff to it. So keep an eye out for that. But if you want a cheap, cheerful case for 40 quid, yeah, definitely totally happy with this. Surprisingly easier to build in than I figured. Although you will need a power supply with flat cables, otherwise I think then you may start struggling a little. But for a relatively modest build like this, absolutely great. And I'm pretty sure if I put this onto Facebook Marketplace, even tonight for like 250, 300 quid, it'll be gone like that. So yeah, based primarily on the looks, that'll be what sells it. The other things like the fans not having controllable RPM, is it the end of the world? Potentially not. It's relatively quiet anyway. The noisiest thing in there at the moment is the Arctic cooler, which is going at some crazy RPMs right now. But it does look quite nice, so swings and roundabouts, I guess. So I'm going to play around with this, tweak it a bit more. I might do a quick update video on it to let you know how it's all going, or even if it's just sold and how much I sold it for. So thanks for watching, thanks for the super chats, thanks for your participation, which is difficult for me to say. If you want to join us in our Discord chat, feel free to do so. Links are in the video description, and also they've been in the chat from time to time. If you've got any other questions or comments, obviously mike@mikesunboxing.com, you can send us an email. I do try and answer as many emails as possible, but obviously the channel is starting to grow and things are getting difficult, so I will try and do my best, but can't guarantee it. If you want an immediate response, our Discord is the best bet. There's tons of guys on there and girls who are really good with their tech and will answer your questions very, very quickly and efficiently, which is awesome. So again, yeah, thanks for the super chats. Thanks for joining us. And all that leaves me really is to say, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.